in the church.
Right, my name's Penny Platts and I'm a church warden here at St Faith's in Dorstone. Therefore, as a church warden, we're responsible for the care of the building and making it available for services.
And the reason I'm here talking to Penny today is Penny was one of the first churches, if not the first, to welcome pilgrims overnight sanctuary. So what are your aims and ambitions for this church, Penny? I mean, I know it's been here a very long time, and you are now the warden. And it's obviously, we're in times of change, as we always are.
The absolute bottom line is to keep the church open, partly because it's been a place of worship here since the early 13th century that we're sure of, and we would hate on our watch to be the ones who said, well, the church is closed, because the congregation gets older and smaller, the money gets more and more difficult to find. So we really feel that the pilgrim way is one way of bringing people here and introducing them to this building and the village and the whole area of the Golden Valley.
Yes, well, that is food to my heart. It sounds exactly what I think, and I indeed have walked to this church because we did the I can't remember, did we actually we did stay here. It was the first night, that's why I forget. So it was great. Now I'm going to go through a few questions because we're talking to wardens here who have the care of church. Unlike vicars, they have to consider all those sort of health and safety issues, which I know you have. So first of all, one of the you've got to have a toilet. Now, if the church hasn't got a toilet, which I believe Dorstone hasn't yet. We have no internal facilities, and people would have to walk from here up into the village centre, and there are public lavatories there. But if you were a pilgrim staying overnight, it's not advisable because you couldn't go on your own, you would need a torch, and it would be quite a dangerous thing. So we used some of the funding, first of all, to try and provide a lavatory here, at least as a temporary measure until we can perhaps afford to put inside facilities. So what did that involve, getting the lavatory?
First of all, you need to discuss with the PCC where you want to put it. That sounds easy because you think, oh well, you know, it would look good there or it would be fine there. But you have to consider, if you're putting it in the churchyard, you have to consider where the burials are. You have to consider where the pathway is. How can people get to it safely in the dark? So all those things have to be considered. Now, normally, you then take that proposal to the PCC, and if they agree that they would be happy to have some form of portaloo in the churchyard, then you need to go to the Diocesan Advisory Committee and ask what they think, because they will be the people who raise the faculty. So first the PCC, then the DAC. They will come back to you after their meeting with recommendations, and if they're in agreement, then you can actually go online now to fill in a faculty. Then the faculty, if it's granted, will come back maybe with, as in our case, we can have it for 2 years, and at the end of 2 years it has to be reviewed again, because we've asked for it as a temporary measure until we can get internal facilities. But in our case, we had a hidden extra. We're in a conservation area. Now, because it's the conservation area, we had to go for full planning permission. You wouldn't if you're not in a conservation area, because a portaloo is a temporary structure. So you'd only need church permission. We had to go to the planning authority, and the conservation officer was involved. He didn't like the first site that we'd chosen, but we all agreed on the present site. And then as soon as the planning permission has been obtained, then you can go for the faculty, and then it's all granted. You know, you've got council permission, you've got church permission, and then you can go ahead.
Well, that's made it very clear. Yes, I can see. I don't think you have to pay, do you, for
Yes, the planning permission was nearly £300.
Wow,
it's the full, you have to pay the full fee.
But the faculty...
The faculties now aren't, you don't pay directly anymore for a faculty. Yes, you just apply, and applying online is very easy.
Right, okay. So how did you actually, I mean, I'm going to take a photo which I think it looks fairly good, but were there any problems with putting that portaloo in?
We had to be careful not to place it obviously on an obvious place of burial. That little corner by the wall, there was no obvious sign of any burial. There was nothing on our churchyard burial plan to indicate that there'd ever been a burial there. Also, the piece of ground is so small that you really couldn't use it. The other reason it was placed there is there's already a lamp post with a light on the top, and we felt that that would make additional safety in the dark, because often your concerts and services are in an evening and people need to access it. You can't always say to them, here's the torch, and you don't want them in any way to be endangered by tripping over the curb of a gravestone, going through grass because you can't see how uneven it is. So it really has to be next to a path. It needs to be lit, and it needs to be easy to access, because particularly children or older people who are frail, you can't have it in a dangerous position.
Yeah, well, it looks really good there.
And that's the other issue, of course. Aesthetically speaking, you don't want it to look like some hideous eyesore. And this is why we chose the wooden version, because it does look like, it is called the potting shed, and it does look like a little potting shed. It isn't something where you think, oh my goodness, what's that?
That's what it looks like. It looks like
a builder's. If it's like one in a builder's yard, then you're obviously not appreciating the aesthetics of your surroundings.
No. So now to go. I mean, I think it looks great, and we'll film it in a moment. And you've already told me that you had to put it on a base, and the wind.
Yes, we'd noticed at a building site nearby that their portaloo actually blew over twice in quite a short time, and this was in the summer. So we worked on the principle that we couldn't risk someone sitting inside and it blew over. So we put a very shallow base so that it wouldn't intrude into the churchyard itself, a very shallow base of stone, and set into it a couple of wooden posts in concrete, and then the portaloo is actually fixed and bolted to those posts so that it can't be stolen, and also that it can't blow over.
Yeah, so, and yes, it looks, as I say, it looks really good, I think. Now, one of the questions people always ask is health and safety and insurance. How did you cover those things?
We got in touch with our insurance company, and they just said they needed to be notified that it was there, and that was all. They didn't need any more information. We were happy to provide costings because we've bought it outright, so it actually is our property. And they were quite happy with that. I think because if the planning authority is happy with where it's sited, and the church authorities, then so are they. They know that it will be done using certain special rules. As far as the internal pilgrims staying overnight, they wanted a full risk assessment both inside and outside the church, so that we drew people's attention to the uneven flagstones. In this case, luckily not steps, but many churches have got steep steps. What parts are well lit, and when they're in the building they obviously need to know about if there's a danger with hot water or kettles